Hey everyone, Frugal Techie here, giving you another budget PC video. Today I'm going to build a Haswell Pentium machine on a $100 budget and see what kind of performance I can squeeze out. Given the relatively recent Haswell lineup, I say relatively because it's still 2 generations old, there is a lot of room for upgradability, and this machine will be with us in future videos as I find cheap upgrades. As always, all my parts are bought used. The number one rule to an extreme budget PC is never buy new from a retail store and never buy the newest generation of parts, as they will command a premium, and also the used market is quite thin for latest gen components, so you won't be getting good prices. So without further ado, let's get into the parts. First is the CPU. I got the Intel Haswell Pentium G3220. It is Intel's 4th generation budget CPU, clocked at 3 GHz with 2 cores and no hyperthreading, and paired it with a budget B85 MATX Gigabyte motherboard. I got the CPU for 25 Australian dollars or 20 US dollars, and the motherboard for 40 Australian dollars or 30 US dollars. Chucked in a 4GB stick of RAM worth about $10. I've got my base platform for the budget system. I've also slapped in a 80GB mechanical hard drive, which costs $5 just for completeness sake. Although I will be running my benchmarks off an external hard drive, as I'm not going to download the games each time I make a video, nor is the 80GB hard drive sufficient to store the games. It's just for a Windows installation. And of course, there is the graphics card. I managed to grab this AMD HD 6870 for a mere 25 Australian dollars. That converts to about 19 USD. Rather than giving you the tech specs, which is pretty irrelevant now, let's just say this was the RX 460 equivalent in 2010. And finally, for the case, I managed to find a small MATX case to suit the motherboard with an included power supply for 25 Australian dollars or 20 US dollars. The power supply is nothing to brag about, but should do okay for this system as it doesn't require too much power. And there you have it. If I did my maths correctly, the total cost of this build comes in at 130 Australian dollars or just under 100 US dollars. I'll just fast forward the assembly and we'll get into the benchmarks. First off, we will test the big 4 esports games. League of Legends up first, being the least demanding. At 1080p decked out settings, we have no trouble maintaining an average of 230 FPS. Way above any monitor can refresh at the moment. I can safely say that any suckiness in this game is due to your own skills and not from the hardware. Up next, the big brother Dota 2. At 1080p medium to low settings, we get an average of 56 FPS, but dropping to as low as 38 in large teamfights. Given this is a MOBA game, this performance is perfectly acceptable, and if you don't qualify for TI7, it's again your own skills that need to be questioned. Going into the first person shooters now, CSGO at 1080p medium settings, we have no trouble maintaining a 74 FPS average and dipping only to 51 at its lowest. Now some people might say 74 FPS is not playable, but this is a budget PC and you probably don't have a 144Hz monitor to take advantage of additional frames anyway. The last and most recent esports game is of course Overwatch. At 1080p, I had to pretty much turn down all the settings to get competitive frame rates. 53 was the average and it dips to 38 in heavy combat. Now these frames are probably not desirable for a competitive first-person shooter, but there are some heroes such as Pharah, Junkrat, Reinhardt that probably won't be as affected by the slightly lower FPS. But the higher precision heroes like Soldier 76, Widowmaker and Tracer will probably be less enjoyable to play. Up next are the AAA titles. In Doom 2016, at 720p lower settings, we get a playable 36 FPS average, and the minimum wasn't much lower at 27. Now unfortunately, Vulkan is only supported back to the HD7 series cards, so the HD 6870 that we have just missed out. It would have been good to see what Vulkan can do for older and lower spec graphics cards. In GTA 5, again 720p lower settings, this machine was surprisingly able to pump out 42 FPS on average, and even reaching past 60 when on foot. I think the 4GB of RAM and dual-core CPU really held the performance back on this game, as GTA 5 is known to be a memory and CPU reliant game. Finally, we have Battlefield 1. It is a feat in itself for this PC to run this game at all, but run it did, and at absolutely lower settings at 720p, we were averaging 26 FPS with constant stutter. I got a headache from just playing 10 minutes in this benchmark under such conditions. So if you're looking to play Battlefield 1, we will have to probably come back once we find a better graphics card. So there you have it, lads. This $130 Australian dollar / $100 US dollar budget PC was able to play all the big 4 esports games. This alone makes this PC worth the money, but it was also able to get its feet wet into the AAA titles pond with playable frame rates at 720p lower settings. Now, detailed specs of this build is in the description, and I will try to provide some reference links on how to get these parts close to the price I paid. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next budget build video.